What's your name and what's your game?
My name's Shane Neville, and my game is Bunker Punks.
Isn't that already out?
Yes, it's in early access right now, but it's coming out for full release 1.0 on May 28th.
And what made you decide the release date for full release?
So I really killed myself in a bad way, like did permanent damage to my eyes and my feet and my hip finaling the game for early access. So I said, you know what, I'm not going to crunch it all for the final release. So when the game was done, I said, okay, 3 weeks from now, I'm going to release my game. So,
okay, and that's when you've timed all the marketing and all that?
So I said, this is going to be my date. And so I finished the game 3 weeks ago, and everything, all the content's done, everything like that. Now just focusing on marketing and promoting the game and getting it out the door.
How'd you figure it's done?
I had to kind of put a line in the sand and say, like, this many guns, this many enemies, this much content, and then I worked a lot with the early access community. I have a great community on Steam, and they just gave me a lot of feedback on polish and balance and kept on fixing things until people stopped complaining, and it was great.
Well, how'd you, after killing yourself to get the initial launch, how'd you kind of time your updates for early access?
At the beginning, I was trying to do it every week, but that got to be really hard because the game wasn't making enough money to pay my bills, and so I had to do a lot of freelance work. And so then at the very least, I made sure I always posted an update every month, and sometimes it was every couple weeks, and every time it was a month, but I wanted it to be enough content and enough of a substantial change that people would want to pick it up again and play it. I didn't want to be like, hey, I redesigned the pause menu GUI, here's an update, like there's no value there. So it was more about the quality of the update and the content of the update that made me decide when to push one out.
And how did you let people know about that?
For the most part, it was just Twitter and the Steam forums, like the Steam community. It's really easy to post news updates that everyone who has your game will get a notification, and that just keeps people coming back and playing it, the people that are in for early access. And so it's just staying in touch with them helped a lot. One
of the more, I think, interesting parts of the Steam community is kind of the people that write reviews. And I'm wondering, how, because the reviews changed, the kind of process of how the reviews worked on a default level changed while you were in early access.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that's something that kind of affected you in any way.
I don't think so, because the Bunker Punks is reviewed very positive, so, and I'm a little over 125 reviews, so I'm past certain thresholds that make a difference in terms of how your reviews get categorized within Steam. When they did the switch that free keys that you had given out no longer affect your review score, that actually didn't affect my review score at all, so that was good. So I know with a lot of people that was a big hit that affected some games, but for me it was fine. I think my percentage dropped by 1% or something like that, so it wasn't a big hit, which then just tells me all my friends that I gave free keys to didn't review my game, so why did I give them keys in the first place, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because every single game has a different effect based on the changes. Some games their score goes up, some games their score goes down, and it's really just another kind of roll of the dice on the Steam store.
Yeah.
And I think the more curator reviews, I'm doing a question bus curation.
Oh, cool.
So I have a curator page if you want to play the games by the people I interview on the question bus, and then the review is, I think, almost always positive. There's one game I didn't give a positive review because I wouldn't actually recommend it.
Right.
But I gave like and it just says I interviewed him on the question bus. Like that's the that's the level.
That's the statement.
Yeah, that's the statement. And I think more curation. Or do you think that curators are kind of the solution for the Steam? Like the kind of visibility issues that a lot of people are facing?
Discoverability is really hard, not just on the platform of Steam itself, but just within the community, because journalists are just flooded with stories too, right? And so it's really hard for an indie developer. If you just say, this is my game, talk about it, and it doesn't have an amazing hook that gets people's attention, you're not going to get a lot of coverage. And so when I first announced Bunker Punks, I got a fair amount of coverage. And when we came out of early access, I got a lot of coverage. But now I don't have a new hook. Like, it's done is my hook. And so I'm not getting as much coverage. And so, I don't know how the launch is going to go. But then when you get into curation, I think they've addressed a lot of the problems in terms of people just requesting keys and then reselling them in the gray market. I think that was a really big problem because you would get a lot of people saying, hey, send me 5 keys and I'll review your game, which is basically like, I'm going to sell 4 of your keys gray market in exchange for giving you a thumbs up review. Like that's the unsaid subtext of doing that, where the curator system right now, it's really simple. Here's your key, hopefully you'll review it, but you can't resell it.
So have you been using that new?
I'm gonna be like blitzing curators next week, and I'll I'm gonna be looking for their tags that they want to review and go with ones that I'm familiar with and things like that. So I'm not gonna like blanket email every curator I can find. But I've got a short list, and I'm going to be going through in more depth next week and just sending off keys and putting it on their radar.
And I feel like the game's coverage kind of landscape changes even more than the game's landscape itself. Time to time, like we didn't even have the built-in Steam Curator stuff when we were coming out. So how are you pie charting your marketing time between like traditional press and Twitch people and YouTube people and Steam curators and all that?
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm doing a good job of it, but this is my general idea, is if people have heard of your game, they're more likely to open your email, whether they're a streamer or a journalist or a curator. And so I'm lucky in that I've been in the industry for like 22 years. I have a lot of old contacts that I've stayed in touch with. And so I was reaching out to them 3 weeks ago, and so I got that article on Kotaku about how I crunched during the early access and like permanently injured my eye and did all this permanent damage. And
it's always good when you can turn those negatives into Kotaku articles.
Yeah, exactly. But it is funny because then I got a bunch of emails from friends saying, "Are you okay?" And it's like, no, this was 2 years ago. Like, yeah, I'm in a much better place now. But I was just talking with one of my contacts at Kotaku, and we were just talking about different things, and that came up, and he was like, yeah, there's a story here, let's do the story. And that elevates kind of your exposure a little bit, but I don't like blanket emailing people without having some sort of contact. And so it's more about building those relationships, maintaining them, and then seeing where they go from there. When I launched into early access, Twitch was still kind of the Wild West, and there weren't a lot of paid endorsements, and so a lot of streamers were just happy to get free keys, and it's a very different situation now on Twitch. So I'm going with the people I know and the people that I follow and have relationships with, and sending them stuff, and then hoping that through Keymailer or other services, the curator system, people come to me with requests. And that's what I've seen over the last week and a half, 2 weeks since the Kotaku article came out, and since I announced my release date. I've gotten a lot more requests from high-profile streamers like. I don't want to name.
We don't need to.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to name names, but like people, I was genuinely surprised that my game was on their radar. And people whose work I'm a fan of were contacting me saying, "Hey, your game's really cool. I want to check it out." So that's been really great. And then hopefully that's going to start to peak towards a week and a half from now when the game comes out, and then more people will just be on more people's radar, because that's kind of what you want is. I think that's what I think. I think you want to get enough impressions on the people who are influencers so that then they're excited about your game so they can talk about it. But if you just like blanket email everybody and nobody's heard of anything, they're barely even going to open your email because their inboxes are just stacked. Whether they're a journalist, a streamer, a curator, everybody's stacked. So you want to get on their radar somehow.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of Twitch, one of the biggest meetups we have here in Vancouver is the Twitch meetup.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering how you're finding, or do you go to that, and how have you found that with a game coming out soon and a game that's like demoable?
So when I did the early access launch, I went to the Twitch meetups regularly, and I had a sign-up sheet, and I signed up tons of people, and maybe 5% of them streamed the game. And so I know that streamers have their audience, and their audience is very much about the game that they play. So there was a really high-profile FIFA streamer, and he was super psyched on. He's like, all I ever play is FIFA, but I'm totally going to play your game. And he had like tens of thousands of subscribers, and I was really like, he never streamed my game. And that's totally fine, right? Because his audience is there to watch him play FIFA. And if they're there to watch you play StarCraft or League of Legends or whatever, that's totally fine. So I just kind of focused more on the people who are streaming that have variety shows and stream a variety of different games, and that's kind of where I focus my efforts now.
It's also crazy that because I remember one of the biggest profile streamers we had was like, he played something.
Yeah.
And he's just like has to play a game as a break. and he picked us, and it was like one of our biggest streams like pre-launch, and it's just so crazy to me that that people like give the stream your game as a break.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's interesting. It's Twitch is a lot more mature now as a medium, and like the audience has figured out what they want, and the streamers have figured out how to make the most of their audience and their time. And so where 2.5 years ago it was like people were just figuring it out, and so I'd have people with 1,000 followers asking me for $2,000 to stream my game, and I'm like, no. I don't know if you know how math works, but this isn't how math works.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
But they didn't know, right? Everyone was still figuring it out, and I think now it's more relaxed, and they figured it all out now. So,
well, I think I've had one podcast advertising company reach out,
right?
And I gave them a number, and I just made it. I was just like, "This is what it's worth."
Yeah.
And then they asked how many subscribers I had, and I told them, and then I never heard back. So it's kinda like, I think in general you just kind of gotta like test that out.
Yeah, exactly. You never know. So
has streaming influenced any kind of like little like tangible aspects of your game?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like every time that if I post a big update and somebody streams it or does a YouTube, I always watch it, especially if they've never played the game before, because when I first went into early access, before that, I did a ton of hands-on play testing. And so, I just watched how people played my game, and I could see where they would get confused, and I could change the UI for that. And now that's probably one of the greatest values, is watching somebody who has nothing to gain or lose by playing my game. Whether they like it or hate it, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they're entertaining their audience. But if they come to a screen and they're confused about what to do, or they don't understand the impact of something or what the benefit is, then that's a good cue to me that I need to make my UI cleaner and just communicate better. So like the first year was really good for that, and still on occasion when somebody streams it, I'll watch it and see where they're having fun and where they're hitting hiccups, and I'll adjust things accordingly.
It is really good to like test out like when you do an update and then wait a little bit and then just see who's streaming it and kind of see. Like I find it like it was really good for even just bug testing.
Yeah.
Like just seeing stuff. And also it's really hard to set up, because I've heard that like the best test scenario would be they don't know you're there.
Yeah.
They don't know you're there, and they're just playing it by them, like of their own action, and then you're kind of watching and seeing what they're doing. Because if you're there, then most people will be nicer. They won't they'll ask questions, or they'll so it's kind of nice with streaming to be able to have that thing that's normally a pain.
Yeah.
I don't know, have you ever been able to do that type of testing in your career?
Not as like an indie. Like we did some blind tests like way back at EA and stuff like that, but that was a very different world and a different time.
And they also know that it's EA.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're still they know it's part of it, and you're like behind a two-way mirror, and it was really awkward and strange.
So it was like a detective.
Really, really weird. Yeah, we did some of that at Nokia too.
Was it obviously?
Yeah, like the people had to be really clueless to not realize that there were people behind the glass watching them play, and they would be like, and it's they called it focus testing then and stuff like that, and yeah, it was very strange. Where now, I worry a lot less about what the people say, and I worry a lot more about how they play and the decisions that they make, because I designed Bunker Punks to be a very fast-moving, aggressive game where if you stand in one place, you're just going to die. And so you've always got to be moving, whether it's forwards, backwards, side to side, whatever, you've always got to be moving. And if they weren't playing the way that I was trying to design the game for them to play, then I would look at doing things to improve that. And so, especially in the early days, going to full indie and doing playtesting, having a drunk stranger play your game in a bar is amazing, because their filters disappear. Yeah. They're just there to like try it and see if they like it, and if they like it, they keep playing it. And if they don't, well, screw you, they're going to go do something else, right? And so there's very little for them to lose their game by playing your game, and so you see behaviors and you see where people bounce off of things and make decisions, and that was invaluable in the early days.
And they're also kind of your like. As far as if gaming, like how much you game was a spectrum, they're kind of like I'd say game developers are probably dead in your market, right? Yeah. Whereas like if you were to demo at a just random place, it's like they might not have played Doom or Quake.
And sometimes, developers will, like, the one thing that always bugged me, there were a couple times when people would just come up and, like, touch your monitor and, like, poke at things on the screen to give you feedback. And it's like, I'm really picky with all my hardware. So I'm like, stop touching my brand new laptop. And it really freaked me out because they're drunk. And
don't touch screens in general. You you just put your finger
near it,
close to it.
But like people would like tap it. It just drove me nuts. But like
I don't like that at work.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I want to keep my monitors clean.
But like a lot of people did like really cool stuff and gave me a lot of good feedback. And sometimes they would, have feedback that was completely irrelevant, and you've just got to learn how to filter that and know where the gold is. But that's what you're always looking for. You're looking for that one nugget of insight that will make your game way better.
I also feel like Bunker Punks is kind of it is in a genre.
Yeah,
like it is established in a genre that has its rules.
Yeah.
Does that make it easier to filter? Because you can just hear feedback that's like, okay, they don't understand that this is what it is.
Yeah, exactly, and that's something it's been great with the Steam community too, as well. Just filtering stuff where it's like, oh, you need, people are like, oh, I want hidden rooms, and I'm like, well, hidden rooms mean that you're wall bumping against everything and taking your time to go through the levels, so. You don't really want hidden rooms. The game is about running fast and moving, and so like you get that feedback because that's something that people remember from Doom and from Wolfenstein that has a nostalgia in their brain, but it's not the core to what makes the game fun and playable. And so it's like you just got to filter that stuff out with like the nostalgia elements that.
Yeah, I don't really like hearing that. I don't really like the hidden rooms in Wolfenstein. I don't mind like if I know I need to go there. Like if it's like in the new Doom,
right?
It's like, okay, there's a thing here, and I'm like, okay, where is it?
How do I get to it?
Yeah, like I kind of enjoy that, especially because the level design's a lot more like, there's got to be a way to do this.
Yeah, where like if you're doing procedurally generated hidden rooms, it's really hard to provide hints, right? Like you can't do it. It just generates, and if everyone walks up to every poster to see if there's a room behind it, it just makes the game zero fun. So
yeah, I think we have hidden rooms in our game, but nobody would try and bump into them unless they scout it. It's more if they scout it, they go, "What's that?" and they go to the thing.
Right.
But I think theoretically they could run just tapping up.
And just find the hidden rooms.
Yeah. But they're also really rare.
Yeah, I just didn't want players to wall bump, and so you get that feedback, and you roll with that, and you always say, "That's great, give me more." Because if you just like, "No, I don't want to do this," they're not going to give you more feedback, and that's especially with other developers. You want as much feedback as you can because you never know what you're going to get. That's going to be the key, and so you just keep rolling with it and keep asking for more.
And also like doubling up, like if you hear the same feedback from multiple people, that probably
exactly. The hard thing is like sometimes there's someone who you'll hold in high regard and they'll give you feedback, and because they're very successful and they've given you feedback that's well thought out, your intention, you might be inclined to act on it more likely than other feedback. And I've made that mistake a few times where it actually made the game worse, but because it was like, wow, that person's a great game designer and I'm going to act on it. And then it's like, well, no, that sucked. That was actually a really bad move. And so it's really hard, and I've been making games for like 22 years, but I still have idols and heroes, and it's hard not to weight their feedback heavier than it would be to other people, and so it's sometimes that's dug me in a couple holes that I had to dig out of.
I mean, I definitely like try and think of if they are like a designer that I really respect. I think about what type of games they play, and then kind of if that lines up, then I would value them. But if it's like I know that they don't play those games,
right?
Like it's like Chris Barassa. Every time he sees Matt Thorson recently, he's like, I never want to play Celeste. It's not my game. But love what you're doing. Love it. Like it's
That's
like,
so Barassa.
Yeah, and it's like, so I wouldn't go to Chris Barassa for platforming feedback, but I would go to Matt because I know Matt has played all those games and loves Mario Maker and like has made those type of games.
He's the guru of side-scrolling platformers.
Or like the Northways with VR. Like,
if
I was making a VR game, I would love their feedback. Just
exactly
because all they play is VR.
Yeah, and it's like you have a conversation with them before you even start the project, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm thinking about making this. What are the 1st 5 mistakes that I shouldn't make? And that's the great thing about Vancouver, or just having any sort of community around you, is you can go and ask those questions, and nobody ever thinks you're being stupid. Like, that's probably one of the best things I've learned over the last 5 years is nobody thinks you're stupid or incompetent because you're asking for help or advice. It's like that's actually how you grow and continue to develop. Is you need to ask for help, and
I think most people know that their advice is the time and the genre and the platforms that you're releasing on influence. Like, if anybody ever asks me for advice, I'm like, well, it was this time and this is what we did and this is why we did it, but I don't know, man.
Your results may vary. Yeah. No guarantees, right?
So is there any developers that are like huge FPS buffs that were super good feedback-wise?
Yes, and his name slips my mind right now, but he was hardcore competitive Doom player and Quake player, and I feel really terrible that I forget his name right now. But anyways.
Do you remember his esports name?
No. But he was competitive. When they had John Carmack at GDC that year playing people in Doom, he was one of the best people against... Romero. No, Romero, not Carmack. Yeah. It was John Romero.
Carmack's building rockets.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to the moon and shit. But it was Romero. But he played him and did really well. And
is Romero still nice at Doom?
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he was just bodying people left, right, and center. It was amazing. Anyways, but he played my game, and I got 2 pages of notes, and it was like, you've got to put your rotation head angle just down 4 more degrees. And it was so precise and so accurate. And he's like, you know what, your run speed's 8% too slow. And it was that one chunk of half hour of feedback, just filling pages in my notebook. I just went home the next day and did all of it exactly how he said, and the game was 40-50% better. It just felt better. It was more fun, more immersive.
And you just randomly...
Yeah, we met at Felindy, and he just gushed it all out to me, and I just ate it all up. Yum, 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 yum. And, it was amazing.
Is there any really bad feedback that you just were I'm never doing that?
Yeah, the hidden objects one is the hidden rooms one always comes up, and it's always against the nature of the game. There's a lot of people...
You know what's the good thing about that one too is you can put a hidden room in there. If anything, it's more susceptible to...
Yo, you didn't find it? You didn't find the hidden room I put in?
Well, also it's they wouldn't expect it, given you're so staunchly
That's true. But and there was a lot of people that wanted the bunker sim to be more complicated. So what had happened is Bunker Punks, it's a retro first-person shooter, high-speed, procedurally generated levels. After a couple levels, you go back to a bunker and you add rooms, and the bunker is basically a nonlinear skill tree. But when I first did the bunker building, it was a full bunker sim, and you had punks living in your bunker, and they could go and work out in a gym, and it was closer to Fallout Shelter and XCOM. And now it's more XCOM / nonlinear skill tree. And so there was this full simulation, and people bounced off of it hard because they would come back, and their adrenaline would be playing, and they'd get to the bunker and be like, okay, what do I build a room? What do I do? And it's time's passing. What's going on in these two genres mashed up in a really awkward way? Yeah. So then I simplified the bunker building and made it a nonlinear skill tree, which is great. People come in, upgrade down the path they want to go down, and go back in and play. But then people were like, oh, I want the bunker building to be more sim-like. It's dude, I tried that for a year and a half and it sucked. It was I wasted so much time building this, and people bounced off of it so hard. I hear you. It was the original idea for the game, but it doesn't work. People just bounced off of it way too hard, and I had to rebuild the whole thing.
I think one of the things that I saw the Giant Bomb coverage of Bunker Punks, I think during way in
the early access.
And they got the kind of dystopian, anti-capitalist kind of dark future part of it, but I feel is that something that you feel is kind of did you have trouble getting that out there? Just because I feel it's a bit under, for how many anti-capitalist things I see on Twitter, I don't see the proportional Bunker Punks kind of tweets about it. And I'm wondering if that's something that you've had trouble getting out, or if there's something that you're trying to improve the messaging on that.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because when I first started Bunker Punks, it was when Harper was running Canada, and for people that don't know, he was a pretty far-right conservative, and, was silencing the scientists and making a lot of bad decisions about refugees and immigration and things like that. And I was very, very angry. And then...
And we also don't have a term limit. So he was, like, I remember, because I once I graduated, it's like he won the first 8 years of me being able to vote every time.
Yeah, and so I was very frustrated and I was very angry. And then we had an election and Justin Trudeau won. And I'm like, oh... I'm not that angry anymore. Well, I'm just going to finish up my game. And then Trump won in the States. And, like, the fiction of bunker punks is, Russia goes to war, America gets a hard right conservative corporate leader, and there's, like, all the food crisis and climate wars happen, and all the rich people are like, screw it, we're going to go live in our walled cities and everyone else can suck it. And the idea, all of, like, the early bunker punks fiction was all about building walls. And so when Trump is like, build that wall and campaigning on that, I was like, man, this is like, it's scary that it's hitting so close to home. Yeah. And so honestly, I've leaned away from that angle, and like, it's still very much in the game and it's very much in the world. I haven't pulled it away from the game at all, but in terms of promoting the game, I just think like we're in a really scary place right now politically. And I think that the fiction hits too close to reality for me to be like, yeah, this is awesome. It's like, no, this is really scary. Like,
and if people do find it, they'll be connected with it.
Right. And if that hits that string, if not, if you're just like, damn the man, and you just want to be anti-corporate, that's totally cool too. But for me, I had to pull away from that angle, which was my motivation for making the game in the first place, because, like many people after the election, I was unproductive for 3 or 4 months because I was just in such a state of shock. I couldn't stop watching the news and watching these things happen, and it's still like something bad will happen, and it hits me so emotionally that I'm like, what can I do? And so I just had to step away, and the game is the game, and it's got its message about anti-corporation and how governments can use propaganda to silence people and influence their decisions and make them take medication that keeps everyone in line, and like those are all things that are actively happening in North America right now. And so it's like it hit too close to home, so I kind of distanced myself a little bit away from it.
And do you also find that, like, I feel like a lot of games that people are mad at that are political or have those kind of ideas are of specific genres that I would say that if you took the graph of people that play it would all vote like kind of that thing, whereas right. I feel like the shooter might lean a little bit more of a mixed kind of political crowd. And I was wondering if you kind of experienced anything with that, where it was like, what's all this politics doing in my shooter? I just want to go to hell. Or
I would say that there's been just as many people saying pixel art is stupid, I want my high definition graphics, and that many people saying that, and as many people saying like, get your politics out of my game. But it's been surprisingly few, but I think it's because of the nature of the game. The pixel art I think bounces off a lot of those people that really want a high definition shooter. Like if they're far right politically, I don't think that they're going to look at the trailer for Bunker Punks and be like, this is for me. Yeah. But like, I think it was also, it probably was a bad business decision, because like the Venn diagram of people who are anti-corporate and the people who like shooting things and blowing them up, there's not a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram. So
I don't know. I think there's people that, I think Splatoon, I would argue that Splatoon's kind of the opposite of that, where it's like they don't want to play a military shooter, but they'll go play Splatoon, and I actually think that it could go the other way. Yeah. Like the same thing with you, where it's like, I like shooters with real guns, but I don't like military.
Yeah, and like games like 11 Bits, This War of Mine, and Frostpunk have done a great job of like, we're making a political game about an event, but they don't say where they stand politically. It's like this is an event, and governments do terrible things, and war is a terrible thing, and you just have to be a part of this and experience it regardless of what you're. And so like their approach to it is they address these situations like, from my perspective, you're like, the very leftist way to approach things in this war of mine. But then if you're a conservative, you're also going to come into that and be like, these are the consequences of war. Like it's apolitical, but it's still got a political bent to it, which is, I think, is really
is that inspiring
brilliant
for you, or
I think it makes me want to work harder, and make something that can kind of reach those people where like that wasn't my objective with this. I wasn't trying to like reach conservatives and say, yeah, this tells you that corporations and government should be separate and religions and government should be separate. Yeah. That wasn't like, I wasn't trying to do that. I knew I wasn't going to make any difference in them. It was more like, for the people who have already drank the Kool-Aid, here's some more Kool-Aid is as much as I'm going to get, I think, with Bunker Punks.
Either flavor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Given it's the like kind of take down the man kind of anti-capitalism tones of Bunker Punks, how much were you on Steam Spy? And how much, like, what were you doing there?
Like Steam Spy was a great tool. It was weird because Steam as a marketplace changes so rapidly that like a game that released 6 months ago doesn't reflect the market today. But yeah, I use Steam Spy all the time. I love Steam Spy. It was fun to see the games that I thought would do well and then see how they actually did and vice versa. If you're like, oh, I think, this game, I think it's going to tank, and then it does really well, and it makes you question what you know about the market, because the market is so broad and it's so beyond what you believe is interesting in games and what you value in games. And so it's always good to look at Steam Spy and have that reality check of like, this audience is huge. There's tons of people with PCs and they all want different things, and you never know what's going to be a success. But yeah, leading up to launch, I was on Steam Spy religiously. Bunker Punks, I think in launch week, it was in the top 3 or the number 1 trending game on Steam Spy for a couple days. So that was like, for someone who used the site a lot, I was like, hey, this feels really good.
I guess that's an interesting way of like testing your marketing.
Yeah.
Because then it's like you people that are developing games, which are probably most people on Steam Spy, are interested in how you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So yeah, people were talking about, people were streaming it. It wasn't, and it didn't, like, Bunker Punks didn't do great.
It's not done.
It's not done.
It's not even out.
It definitely didn't tank either. It was like one of those, like when people talk about the success of Bunker Punks, it's like, it's probably in the top 5% of Steam games, but at the very bottom of that top 5%, So it's a hockey stick in like that curve of success on Steam. If you're at the very top of that curve, it's great, and you can have a lot of success. But if you're just a little bit lower, it's exponentially lower as you go down. But there's I have friends who have launched games on Steam and literally sold tens of copies. And it's a crazy marketplace.
So are you going to be looking at other platforms now?
No. Mainly because Bunker Punks is built in Unity 4, and I upgraded to Unity 5 to support other platforms, and Unity made changes to how they do collision on dynamic meshes. And so when I upgraded to Unity 5, once every couple hours people would just fall through the world because of a Unity collision change. And I had to, if I wanted to fix it, I would have had to rewrite all of my world generation code. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to roll back to Unity 4, get the game done on PC, and that's it. Because everybody else, you need the latest version of Unity to support it. And so console support, or any other platforms, is not in the cards.
Yeah. So would you make another game by yourself?
Yeah, I love it. I really do.
What's some of the like best parts of it?
So like I worked in AAA for 16 years before I went indie, and I love that when you collaborate with people, and like I work with Power Up Audio and with Michelle in the Pit, they did all the music on Bunker Punks. It's a collaborative thing, and everyone wants the best thing for the game. And I had that same experience on Shellraiser when I worked with Slick. That was an amazing collaborative experience. But when you're in AAA, or you're just in studio development in general, a lot of people can be more selfishly inclined and argue from a point of personal gain or personal impact as opposed to what's best for the product. And I love people. I hate arguing with people, and professionally, I work as a studio manager or a game producer or a design director, and you're in a position where you're just arguing with people all the time, and it was more anxiety than it was worth. And so I just rather get together with a few people, either myself and like an artist, or myself and an artist and a programmer, and we all just want to make something awesome, and we work together to make something awesome. And so I love it, and working by myself is good. I don't have a problem motivating myself, and getting the hours in every day is not a problem for me, and so I really like it. And in Vancouver, it's great because you can always go out with other people and talk about other solo developers can get together over lunch and have social contact with human beings and get out there.
And so, how do you discipline what you're working on day to day?
I realize that I have a limit on how many channels I can work on. So Alec Holoka is always talking about how he's got 4 or 5 prototypes on the go all the time, and I can't do that. I just have to say, this is my game right now. And if that game is canceled, then I have another game right now. But I'm not going to say, I'm working on game A, and I'm also prototyping game B, and I have something game C on the side. And right now I'm doing a lot of freelancing, and so I have one main freelancing contract, one main project, and then I have my own personal development stuff that I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of painting right now and doing acrylic painting, and I love it. I'm loving it.
You ever done paint throwing?
No.
It's pretty good. So you pick 3 paint colors, dip your paint, too much paint, stand about 6 feet away, huck it at the canvas.
Wow.
And then it drops kind of cool streaks. But the best part is you pick your color palette. So I went pink, purple, white.
And then you get with other people.
And then people, the other guys always stand a foot away, so you got a little bit of blue in there.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, the 3 Cats Art Studio on Main Street.
Nice.
Yeah, they don't only do cute mugs.
That sounds
they
like my shipping party. That's what we should do for the Bunker Punks wrap party is go and throw paint.
Over there on this side.
It's not a bad idea. You can do one big canvas, everybody pitches in, you get a huge 30 by 10. Yeah,
I like where your head's at.
You might even be able to do a stencil, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true.
You could tape out Bunker Punks,
the logo, and then
just huck a bunch of color palette. What's the Bunker Punks color palette?
Browns. The game is all neon and sci-fi, and a lot of blues and grays, and then the enemies are all reds. But the key image is a lot of desaturated brown, post-apocalyptic stuff.
And so, but day to day, design, programming, art, how did the whole development go? Was it design heavy for a part and then art heavy for a part?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's all about what's the most important thing, and so I'm project manager by trade, and so I really got into Scrum and Agile development, so I kind of use Scrum as Scrum of one. So I have my big backlog, and always the most important stuff is at the top, and sometimes the most important stuff is we're going to get a gun done this week. And so I do the research, I do my paper design, then I get the sprites happening, I get the animation done, and then I start tweaking the numbers, and I tweak the animation, and then once all the functionality's in, then I send it off to Power Up to get the audio passed, and then they send me back the audio, and by the end of the week I've got a new gun. And so it's very, it's rare that I just do one thing for a big chunk of time. I focus a lot more on getting a full feature implemented. So there might be, when I was doing the bunker building, I knew I needed, 6 different room types and 5 to 6 different upgrades per room. So there was a ton of pixel art for 2 weeks, and then there was a ton of programming as I built the whole simulation side of thing and the bunker building thing. But that was probably one of the only times in development where I was just exclusively doing one thing for a chunk. Otherwise, it's I'm constantly switching between the disciplines, and just so that I can take a chunk and put it in the game. It's we're going to add special attacks. Okay, well, which special attack are we going to do first? We're going to do it for one character, get all that done, and art and everything all gets done in a week, and then do somebody else the next week.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the Question Bus.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's my first ride. I've been listening for a long time. I'm always excited to ride the Question Bus.
What's your favorite episode you've heard?
Ty Taylor's when he did Tumblestone. I don't know why.
The weird thing about that is because Ty Taylor is one of, I don't feel like he's on. I feel like he's one of the most confident.
Yeah.
He's always super confident and says a bunch of fun things.
Yeah.
But then when I interviewed him, for whatever reason, I felt like he was way more reserved than he was, and it freaked me out.
Yeah, it's funny because when I listened to it, I'd only met Ty at parties. I didn't really know him that well, and so now I've gotten to know him better. And but yeah, at the time I was yeah, it's really cool. So that one stuck out to me for some reason.
Yeah, cool. And how do you feel about VanCaf?
I love it. VanCaf is my favorite Vancouver event of the year, bar none, and I spent all my time on Facebook leading up to it, telling people to come meet me at VanCaf, and so I've seen a bunch of friends here today. I've met a bunch of new artists. I've seen some old comic people that I love, and indie comics are one of the main reasons I do indie games, and the same level of expression that you get in indie comics, that you can just make a weird little zine about your trip to Japan and staple it together and sell it for $3. And if nobody buys it, that's totally cool. That's what I love about indie games, and that's what I love about sites like itch.io. And that's something now that Bunker Punks has done. It's been a 4-year project. There's going to be a lot of weird little small things that I'm working on that aren't necessarily going to be commercial, that aren't going to have like a PR campaign and a trailer and stuff like that. Just making weird stuff, putting it out there, experimenting, learning new things, and I get a lot of inspiration from the indie comics scene.
Is there anything in particular you always try and get out of VanCav when you come?
I'm constantly reminded that color works in ways I don't expect it to as an artist. And so when I see color combinations in indie comics that I don't expect, it always gets me excited. And so it's that's the one reminder I get every single year is I'm always looking at the covers, because everyone does a really good job on their covers, and there's always such range in between them. And so just finding out, like, there's different ways to tell stories, and different things connect with different people, and there's no right or wrong when it comes to art. There's no good or bad. It's whether or not it succeeds in what it's attempting to do, and that's a big inspiration.
That would have been a perfect ending, but I forgot to ask you if there's anything more you want to plug.
You can follow me on Twitter at Shane Neville. I tweet a lot. Bunker Punks is coming out May 28th on Steam and Humble, and probably on Itch if I get time to set up the page in the next week. And check out the game. I hope you like it.